Everyone. I'm Elizabeth Lipscomb, and I am the Vice President of Strategic Alliances at Discovery Education. And I'm really excited to be introducing you to this next session that we have on aspiration and action. And over the next hour, we're going to explore what it is that motivates people to drive social impact. And so we have some leaders from across sectors and subjects who are going to tell us about what occurred in their respective journeys that led them not only to have these great ideas, but to persevere and put them into action. And so it's really fascinating when we look at the cognitive science behind aspiration and action, where the spark comes from that leads people to an idea that they do desire to put into action. I was a communications major, and I remember studying the theory of relevance. And it postulates that we all have this cognitive need to make sense of the world that we live in. And when our brain recognizes that something is relevant, dopamine kicks in. And I don't know, most of you are probably familiar with dopamine. For those who are not, it's the neurotransmitter that is responsible for motivating us and encouraging us to act. It's pretty dope. So when our brain recognizes that something is relevant, that it's interesting, that it's worth knowing, dopamine kicks in. And the more that we are engaged, the more relevant that something is, the more that dopamine kicks in, and the more that we are driven to act. The Social Innovation Summit in and of itself is a beautiful example of aspiration and action. I have known Zeev for a pretty long time now. I've been coming to this summit 6.5 years, I think. They used to do 2 a year, so this is my, I think it counted 11th summit. But the reason I keep coming back is because it is this incredibly powerful convening, not only of ideas that are very relevant to us, but within the company of innovators and change agents and decision makers who are in a position to help translate those ideas into action. But the lesser known story of aspiration and action behind the Social Innovation Summit series is that I think about a decade ago or so, Zeev, you can correct me on this, Zeev had this idea that they could harness all of the power of Landmark's business expertise and put it to work for the social sector. That they could look at their incredible convening power and their unparalleled and really special network, and they could bring everyone together to drive social innovation. And I think I speak for everyone in this room when I say thank you, Zeev, thank you, Ralph, thank you to Landmark Ventures for aspiring to take action. I don't know where you are, Zeev. But I love these stories of business expertise being applied to drive social innovation because I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to live one myself. So I work for Discovery Education, which is a part of Discovery Communications, which you may know as Shark Week. Most people do. But what you might not know is that we were launched in about 1985 because our founder, John Hendricks, had this idea. The cable industry had made a business of entertaining people with fictional content. And he believed that we could actually apply that to nonfiction content and help people explore the world that they lived in. That if people couldn't themselves afford to go to the ends of planet Earth, that he could bring planet Earth to their homes. No pun intended. It was a great series. I don't know if any of you saw Planet Earth, but it was my personal favorite. By about 2010, Discovery Communications had become the #1 nonfiction media company on planet Earth. And it was about that time that I joined the company, and I became a part of this new division that they had launched, Discovery Education, which was going to look at harnessing the power of Discovery's business expertise and putting it to work to reimagine the education marketplace. It was this notion that we could shift the way that schools consumed content, that they didn't need to necessarily have a vendor-client relationship, but that the people who were providing content to the schools could have the same definition of success as the districts themselves. Not profits, but increasing student engagement and motivating student achievement. And now, in This year, 2018, we are in about 50% of US schools, and we are the leading provider of digital content into classrooms. We are in about 50 countries. And if you asked anyone at Discovery Education what our mission is, plain and simple, they would tell you it's to make learning more relevant to life. It's that we want to support teachers in their critical work to engage and motivate the next generation of social innovators by providing them with digital resources that personalize that learning experience and make what they're learning in class relevant to them as individuals so that they will be prepared for the jobs we need them to fill and, quite frankly, the global challenges that we need them to solve. Another story of someone who has had a remarkable idea in the K-12 education space is our first speaker. He was a history teacher in the Bronx, and he sensed that there was this disconnect between classroom supplies that public school teachers needed and people's willingness to give and help. They just needed a way. So he took action and he created the crowdfunding platform Donors Choose. And 18 years later, Donors Choose is in more than 70% of all public schools. More than 70% of all public schools have created a Donors Choose project. And more than 2 million people have helped. They're on Oprah's list of ultimate favorite things, not just favorite things, ultimate favorite things, which he told me right before. He said, yeah, we were really terrified the site was going to crash that day. So you should ask him about his CTO walking into work that day. It's pretty hilarious. But Fast Company, on their annual 50 most innovative companies in the world, a few years ago, Donors Choose was the first charity that was ever included on that list. So please join me in welcoming a personal hero and my friend, Charles Best.